Hey y'all, and welcome back to KateMas. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. And today we are doing the official last Palette Palooza review countdown video of the year. This will officially round out all the reviews that I'm going to share palette-wise this year for 2020. And it's a little crazy to think about, but we're here. The year is coming to a close. I'm going to take the rest of the month to just revisit old favorites and decide and determine my ranking for all the palettes that I tried, and just give myself a chance to enjoy the palettes that I tried in 2020 and just kind of reach back for my absolute favorites. But we have reviews to do for the last palettes that I tried for 2020, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 palettes to talk about. You would think I would have counted beforehand, but you know me. Wait. 8! I forgot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8! There was one hiding in the back. Anyway, 8 palettes, so we're going to keep this intro very short and sweet. Let's just go ahead and dive right in. If you're new to my Palette Palooza ranking videos, I rank them from the worst all the way up to the best. Keep in mind that just because it comes in at the last place doesn't mean it's the worst palette I've ever tried, but having to rank them next to the palettes that I tried this month, it ended up at the bottom for one reason or another, and we'll get into that when we get into the video. But let's go ahead and just jump right in and start with the palette that ended up at the very bottom of this countdown. Alright, for number 8, I was a little surprised, but for number 8 is going to go to the Midas Cosmetics Artistry 1.2 palette. This is the lighter version of their little artistry palette, and for a couple different reasons this ended up at the bottom, but the biggest one being is that it's a lot lighter, so it's a little bit more sheer-ish when you put it on, and I feel like the formula is a little bit more sheer than I expect from Midas Cosmetics when it comes to them as a brand. I've had such good experience from their brand in all the past palettes that I've tried, but trying this, there were so many times where either it took a long time to build up to the color. Now granted, this is intended for lighter skin tones. Maybe it wouldn't be an issue if you were lighter than me, but there were more than one occasion, like I think I only did 3 looks with it, but I feel like every time I use this, either I had a hard time getting it to stick to my skin and build up, or I had a problem meshing them together, which I was very surprised as well. Now they are, you know, all very contrasting in that they're not like super close, so you don't get like a gradient of colors. So in that respect, I kind of understand why it took a little bit extra work to mesh and blend them. But when I did looks with this, even just the yellow to green, it took a lot of blending and building and meshing to really get it to blend well. And even then, I wasn't happy with the blend. It looked fine. Like, I'm not saying it looked terrible. I'm not saying it wouldn't blend. I'm not saying it was like a harsh line. But for me and my standards and what I like to see in my eye looks, it was just a little disappointing for one reason or another. So, you know, with that in mind, I just can't rank it that high. Also, too, I know with this one, I did a purple blue look, and I was not happy with the purple blue look. I don't know if it was the mattes or the mixing of the shimmer with the mattes, but a couple hours after I did my look, I noticed a lot of wear down where the shimmer kind of met the mattes out here. And that could have a little bit to do with the primer, but every time I did a look with this, at the end of the night, I wasn't super happy with how the eyeshadows wore. So for all those reasons, I have to put it at the bottom. I was kind of disappointed to have to put it at the bottom, and I feel terrible, but it's just not my favorite from Midas. I will say though, this shimmer, absolutely beautiful, and it is the most gorgeous. It's just one of those shades that will kind of take on whatever you put it with. So when I did it a green yellow look, it looked very yellow, greeny, golden. But when I did the purple blue look, it definitely looked purple blue. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous shade. But as a whole, am I ever going to want to reach back for this? I can't say that I would. Pros and cons, depends on what you want, you know, what you're looking for in a palette. But for me, it just didn't hit the mark. It really was, in my opinion, a miss for me. Okay, next up is the Poppy Cosmetics See You Never palette. Now, I do have a 3 looks 1 palette, and I was trying so hard to put it up before December and my Vlogmas started, but I just couldn't make it happen, and I don't think I'm going to make it happen in December because the 3 looks 1 palette are just so time consuming. I don't have enough time uploading every day to put to this, so I definitely want to put this up in January. It will be coming. I'll give you guys 3 different looks, and we'll go into all the pros and cons, but if I had to sum it up, I think the biggest reason for me why this ended up so low is that I really enjoyed the neon drip because it was neons, but a little bit more manageable because they were a little bit softer. So trying this palette where they're more pastels with a formula that makes them a little bit more softer isn't really my speed, because when you go and use them, there are some shades that I just felt like looked so, it just like tints your skin that color, like the green and the blue and what other, like this especially. There's just some shades in here that are so soft. They have that soft touch, that soft look to the actual color. It makes it very easy to blend and stuff, but it's just so soft. It just takes a lot of work to build it up. So that was a bit of a down to it, but I mean, I couldn't make them work. They just were a lot more pastel and a lot more, not even just pastel, but a lot more subtle than I was expecting, or than I like to have in my pastels. So maybe if you're someone who likes a subtle pastel, this formula would be right up your alley. But for me, it just missed the mark a little bit. Also too, with this palette, there are just too many pink shimmers and not enough other type of shimmers for me. Like this is a pink, this is a pink, this is a pink. This is more of a coral, but this is a different tone of pink, I would call it. And when we're talking about the other shimmers, there's the blue and the green, I don't know, and the purple down here. I just felt like there was too much pink, because when I swatched them all out side by side, I was just like, yeah, you could have done with like 2 of them tops. That was a little excessive, but it's not a terrible palette. I do want to drive that home. The shimmers in here are gorgeous. They remind me of Glam Light's formula, so if you like that, I think you would enjoy this. They have all that sparkle. And all these shadows too, the shimmers are mostly those pastel type of shimmers, so you can't expect a whole lot of color, but I don't think you would expect intense color with this color story, because they do look very pastels. I think the only other slight con for me is that the deepest shade in here was a brown. I don't know, I have a hard time working brown. I think I've said this before, but I have a hard time working browns in with pastels and color. I just feel like it's not very seamless in my eyes. I don't know. There's just something about it. I feel like every time I use it, I'm like, oh, I wish it was a black or something. So that, I did notice that a little bit in this look, but overall, it's a neat palette. It's got a unique color story. If you're attracted to the color story, I think you'll like it. If you're someone who enjoys pinks, I think you'll like it, because when you're talking about the shimmers on the lid, there's a lot of pinks, but they do give you a little bit of, you know, interest there with something different. And this shade, this is more of a coral, so it is very pretty. So yeah, this just kind of missed the mark for me a little bit, and it could, again, be just because this color story isn't all me, because it is so pastel and kind of that washed out look. So if you're someone who likes that kind of washed out color on your eyes, I think you would enjoy this. But for me, when I'm trying to go as colorful as I can most days, unless I have to go somewhere, it just wasn't all that. And also considering all the other palettes I tried this month that I really enjoyed, that's why it ended up where it did. But it's not a terrible formula. It's just one that you have to like that washed out look for. So I'll leave it at that. You'll hear more in my official review in January sometime. Next up, we have Natasha Denona for number, what is this, 7? No, 6, sorry. Natasha Denona, are you surprised a very neutral palette ranked so high? I was kind of, but I can't get over how beautiful this formula is, and kind of the saving grace for me when it comes to this palette being so neutral is this more burntish orange up here. I love it, because you could really go ham with this and put the shimmer on the lid, or even this white on the lid, and you get a very bright, now it's still grungy neutral, but you get a more vibrant, colorful look, and that's what I like in a palette, so I was really down for that. For the mattes, they're amazing, and for the shimmers, it is beautiful. The mattes blend seamlessly and effortlessly. They're one of those, if you like those little one and done looks, this is totally a formula that would do it. You could pop this on the lid and just buff out the edges, and it would be so pigmented, beautiful, saturated. You could probably get that look in like less than a minute. Like, it's that easy and that smooth of a blend. I was so impressed. So yeah, I only did 2 looks with this, which I don't like to do. I mentioned this in the video as well. I like to do at least 3 looks, but it is a smaller palette, so I only ended up doing 2 looks, and it is what it is. I'm trying to fit in as much as I can before the end of the year, and I got a lot more palettes to do, so I'm going to leave it at 2, but it's definitely a palette that if I, you know, wanted to go somewhere and have a very neutral look, or, you know, wanted to really highlight this shade in a more neutral look, but still have a little color, I would totally reach back for this, because the formula was so beautiful to work with. Overall, I was very impressed, but I couldn't rank it high because I tried a lot of very fun palettes when it comes to colors, so I'm putting this one at, what did I say, number 6? I'm putting this right where it's at, because it's a really good formula. I did enjoy it, but it is very neutral and, you know, a smaller palette. So the options of what you could do with this are a little bit more limiting. Okay, next up for number 5 in my countdown is going to go to the Midas Cosmetics Artistry Palette Volume 1. This is the other one I did put higher, because this formula, while I did experience a little bit of what I saw in the 1.2 when it came to blending and maybe not wanting to mesh, however, the saturation on these colors is so much more that I didn't have to work to build up the colors. So I like that about it, and this is definitely, if you're someone who likes color, and even if you're light like me, I would say go for this palette, because you get a lot more bang for your buck. It's a lot more intense. And also the wear time, I noticed with this one being nicer than the other one. I didn't notice that patchiness issue. I didn't notice the mattes doing anything weird. This shimmer, Midas does these shimmers so beautifully. This one is absolutely stunning. Can you even see it on there? Let me swatch it somewhere where you can actually see. It's a very dry formula. Both of them feel dry when you touch it, so I definitely would say use a glitter glue. I used this a couple times without glitter glue, like between the 2 palettes, and I didn't like it because there was a ton of fallout. But with glitter glue, there was still a little bit of fall, but it was minimal. But it being so dry, it just definitely adheres to your eyelids a lot easier if you use some type of tacky base, and it also keeps the fallout to as minimal as you can. But it is a gorgeous shadow, and I really enjoy it. This one I feel like is a little less transformative than the other one. I feel like with this one, most often I got the same shade of like that purple pink, I guess you would say, depending on what I paired it with. But I did put it with a green look, and I thought it was nice. I did 3 looks with this, but one day, I'm really good at always taking a picture before I leave my makeup table, so I don't know how, but one day I did leave, I never took a picture, so I have no picture of that one. So you're only going to see 2 from this palette, but I promise you I did use it 3 times. I just totally goofed. I don't know what happened that day. I don't know why I forgot it, but I did. So anyway, moving back to the quality of this, I do like it. However, I will say that while it's better than the 1.2, the lighter version, I do feel like it's a little step down from the other palettes that I've tried from them, like the Smoky Glow palette, but it's not terrible. It's just not my favorite from the past month for sure, and it's not my favorite from Midas Cosmetics. So I'll be curious to see. I know she's coming out with more in this artistry collection, so I'll be curious to see if this formula is different or if it is, like I was saying, just because they are so vibrant, they're just harder to blend naturally when you're trying to blend very neon colors, because this yellow is definitely super neon. Okay, moving on to number 4. Can you guess? It's on my eyes. This is the Made by Mitchell Feet on the Ground palette. Here is what it looks like. This is a ginormous palette. There is no denying it. But it's a very nice palette. I will say it's one of those palettes that it has a tricky formula that you have to learn, and once you learn it, then you'll enjoy it. And it's kind of like the Impressionism palette in that the first color you've put down is going to stick the best and everything else won't want to stick to it as well. However, I feel like the formula of this is just a little bit under that of the Impressionism palette. The Impressionism palette, when we're talking about the mattes, the formula is just nicer. The formula is a little bit thinner. So when you go to put down a shade, and then if you try to put down another shade on top, it's not only doesn't want to stick, but it's very, very sheer, if that makes sense. Like it'll stick, but the color that sticks will be very different and very much more sheer than the color you see in the pan. For example, I did a very neutral look the other day, and I wanted a little bit of color, you know, because it was very neutral, but I wanted a little pop of color. So I ended up putting this right where the shimmer stopped and the matte brown met, and I just wanted to pop it there just for a little pop. And while this looks like super bright and super coral, almost, I don't even know how you describe this. I think it's like a coral orange. It just looks neonish. It's so very vibrant. However, when I use that over another shade, it looked pink. Like even here on my skin, having something to stick to, it looks very orangey. Like it looks beautiful and bright, but when I put it on top of the shimmers and the matte that was already there, it looked so see-through and like almost translucent, and it just didn't want to stick much, that by the time I was kind of done patting it on and blending it out, it just gave a little bit of a, maybe not pink, but more of a very, very subdued coral, I guess. It definitely wasn't anything as vibrant as what you see here. However, if I use this right on my skin on a tacky base, it pops so much. So it's one of those formulas that it just kind of depends on how you like to do your eye looks if you're going to enjoy this formula. But it's definitely something I had to learn the hard way because I was using this, and I tend to be that person that likes to use a bunch of colors and likes to pop stuff and add stuff on top of what I've already done. So I prefer my mattes to be able to mesh and mix, and this formula I just feel like it doesn't do it as well. Talking about the shimmers, they are beautiful, but they're all very sheer. So something I feel like you could have taken half of the shimmers out and you still would have got the same type of looks because they're so very sheer. Like these greens, they're beautiful. This green I will give, it is pretty bright and pigmented, but like this green and this green, I mean, honestly, this green looks so very fun, but it kind of just reminds me of this shade when it's on the lid. This pink has just the tiniest hint of pink, and all of these shades specifically, and this one a little bit, but they're very sheer-ish on the lid, so you really want to put like a cut crease or something because you'll really see any color that's underneath. Like if you have any matte, if you're messy in your crease or whatnot, you'll really be able to see that because they're so very sheer. So I like the formula, I like the look, I like the sparkle of the shimmer, but I wasn't impressed with the color variety of it, and I wish there was more of this same formula but just more impactful of a color like this green, because this green was very pretty. This is a very expensive palette, and then on top of that, shipping is very expensive. I think this ended up being around $70 for me to get it, which is pricey. If it's a good palette, I don't really mind, or if it's a good formula, I don't really mind too much. However, the formula just doesn't, in my eyes, equate the price of it. And I don't know how much more I'll try from the brand knowing their formula now and knowing how expensive it was to ship to me, but with that said, this color story, y'all, this color story is so me. Okay, for my number 3 spot, I finally decided to put the Impressionism palette by Musée Beauty. This is a very nice formula. I will say though that this formula works best if you pack it on and then just lightly blend or use other colors to lightly blend around. If you're wanting to mix colors in and really, you know, put, like I think I did a first impressions, I'll leave it linked, but I think I did put down like a blue, and then I put down this pastel green, and then I wanted to deepen up that pastel green with this green, and once I had put all of the pastel green down, this green didn't really want to stick, and you can see that video if you want to see it in real time, but this green really didn't want to stick at all. So this whole palette as a whole, the brand, the formula, I would say it's definitely more conducive to placing them on a somewhat tacky base where you want the colors to pop most, and then using the lighter colors colors around it to kind of blend it out, if that makes sense. I definitely in that video should have started with the green and then blended it out with this pastel, and I think it would have been a lot happier with the ombre, but because I did it the other way around, and it just tends to be what I like to do. I don't know, I tend to start with the lighter and then I like to deepen up just so I don't go too crazy. So it just depends on your preferences and what you tend to do when it comes to eyeshadows, but for me, I definitely had a bit of a learning curve, and I was like, okay, I need to start with my more impactful colors, pack it on, and then use the lighter colors that I want to blend around it. So something definitely to note, and I just wanted to throw out there. But besides that, that was really the only con. Once I figured that out, working with this was a dream. The shimmers are beautiful. They're just so buttery smooth. I can't remember how many looks I did with this, but this was definitely a palette that I did all those looks and I wanted to do more because it was so easy to work with. And also with this palette, it's so colorful. It is so inspiring. However, this is one of those palettes I love because I got a super neutral look with this. And I forget when I grabbed this, I was going somewhere, I think to the dentist, and I didn't want to go too ham with the color. So I used this top row and it looked like a really nice neutral look. It wasn't anything too crazy, but it had, I think I used both of these. The shimmers are beautiful. They're nothing like super sparkly, but they're definitely more intense. And if you put them on with a glitter glue, they look metallic on the eyes, which I love. So yeah, super impressed. It's a great introduction to Muse. If you like color and if you haven't tried Muse Beauty, this would be the one to go with. They did a fantastic job with their very first release, Muse Beauty. I am so very impressed. I cannot wait to see what they come out with 2021. And yeah, I'm just so very appreciative. They did send this to me in PR and I cannot thank them enough. They did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, it's a good palette. Okay, for my number 2 palette, I have to give it to Yvette Beauty, the Autumn palette. This is my first time trying Yvette Beauty, and the color story is a big reason why it landed so high, because this color story is just so me. If you guys have been following me for any length of time, I like my greens, I like my yellows, I like my oranges, I like my browns, and I like my reds. So to have them all in a palette just screaming not just fall, but like very colorful fall, I couldn't have been happier. So I had to rank this high, and also too, the formula is really nice. I can't say that it's the most pigmented formula, like I wouldn't say it's anywhere on like Menagerie Cosmetics level. However, this is a very nice formula that's very easy to build up. Like when I use it and I start out using it, the candy corn, it feels very dry and it might look a little sheer, but it just takes like 1 or 2 maybe extra passes, and it's like super intense, super pigmented. And I always start with a tacky base, and I think that definitely helps. And I'm just super impressed with the formula. Like I said, when I felt this, when I swatched this, I wasn't impressed. Like I swatched it in a Shop My Stash for Palettes video, and I was just like, okay, we'll have to see how this does on the eyes. However, if you have a somewhat tacky base, these go on so pigmentedly, and they blend so beautifully together, and they create such gorgeous looks. You have to like all mattes because this is all mattes, but I love all matte looks, so I was a happy camper. It's limited edition, which makes me so sad because I feel like this palette is the perfect autumn palette that everyone should own, and you can always pull out every fall and get a super colorful yet autumny look. I've used it several times, and each time I used it, I got a lot of compliments saying like, what's on your eyes? It looks so pretty. It looks so vibrant. And I'm like, it's Yvette. So Yvette, I think that's how you pronounce it. I should throw out there. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her brand name, but I am super impressed. She did a fantastic job not only designing this, like it's simplistic, but it's very beautiful. I love the tree, but also her color story, like what she put together. And yeah, my first introduction to the brand, I was super impressed. I'm going to be very curious to see what Yvette Beauty does in 2021, and hopefully I can try more of her formula because she knows how to give you a good formula at a good price. Like I can't remember exactly, but I think it was around $23. And I think I got it on sale. It was a good price, so I was super happy with this. I know I'm raving about it on and on, and I don't want to overhype you because like I said, the formula is not the nicest to work with, like not the nicest to feel, and makes you think like it's not going to work. However, it works beautifully on a tacky base, and I love it. Okay, for number 1, I'm sure this will come as no surprise, but it is the Shroud x Butte Bean It's Freakin' Vast palette. I was so excited when this palette finally came. I've done 4 looks with it, and I still want to do 20 more because the color story in here is beautiful, and I can't get over how amazing the formula is. Now, I've tried the Creepy Cute and the Divinity palette, and I thought the formula was very nice. It blended very nicely. It felt dry, but they blended nice on the eyes. So that's what I was going into expecting with this palette. However, oh my goodness, the pigmentation, the softness of these shadows is unreal. I've swatched them in my shopping for palettes for this month. I'll link it up here if you want to see me swatch it out. It swatches beautifully. Like, I can't get over. Butte Bean, Betty Jean did an amazing job with this color story. If you're like me and like to do interesting color stories and you're always like, I don't know if that'll look good, but it sounds neat, and you do it and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's what I like to do. So I just kept mixing it up, wanting to do something unique, and each time it was so unique and so fun, and yet each time it was so effortless, and there was never a look that I did that I was like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have put those two side by side, or ooh, I probably shouldn't have mixed those two together. Everything about this just blended so seamlessly. So this is a gorgeous, gorgeous palette. All of the shimmers are amazing. This Sam shade in the middle for inner corner highlight, it's beautiful all over the lid, and it's absolutely beautiful in the inner corner. I will say with this shimmer, something that totally impressed me, I'm getting such a mess I need to clean up, but something that blew me out of the water is that I put the Sam shade on my inner corner, and at night I went to take my makeup off and it was still there. It looked blinding at the end of the night. And for me, I get very watery eyes. I'm always kind of rubbing and scratching because I have itchy eyes too, especially in the winter when the heat is on. So I'm always kind of messing with the inner corner, and typically every single time I do an eye look at the end of the day, my inner corners are gone. However, with this shade, Sam, it was not only there and very present, it was blinding at the end of the night. Blew me out of the water. I am going to do a 3 looks 1 palette with this. I don't know if I'll be able to fit it in December. Again, definitely coming in January. I've already recorded it. I just need to have the time to, you know, edit it together and then do the voiceover and sync it all up. But I am so very impressed. If you have been eyeing this, if you weren't sure, if you wanted to wait to see some reviews, this is me saying your money will not be wasted on this palette. And I hope you were able to get it. I think that they're pausing orders for right now because they have so many, but whenever they open back up, it's such a good palette. They did such a, like, I can't get over how amazing of a formula this is. I can tell you the wait was worth it. So if you are still waiting, stay waiting. It'll be worth it when it finally arrives, and you'll be like me, just gagaing over all the looks that you do, and you'll totally forget how long it took to get to you. All right, so those are all the palettes that I'm ranking for this month. Those are my thoughts. I hope above all, as I always say, I hope they were helpful for you guys. Let me know if you have any of these palettes. I'd love to hear your experience. If you experience any of the issues or the successes that I did, let me know if you have any of these palettes that you love as well. Now that I have these reviews done and set and I've recorded it, I'm going to dive into all of the other palettes that I've tried in 2020 and get my ranking palettes for the year out. And yeah, with all that said, thank you so very much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I have a giveaway going if you want to find it up here. There are 2 different boxes of makeup you can win. And if you want to continue getting daily content from me, I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92. And with all that said, I will see you very soon in my next video tomorrow. Bye, guys.